Hello everyone, my name is Alana MacArthur and I am a PhD dietitian, and I was hoping to just build on Jillian's label reading presentation from last week, and we're going to look at the sugar content in some common drinks using the labels. So as mentioned, we're building on Jillian's presentation, so if you haven't watched it yet, go back and do so just to learn the basics of label reading. One thing I will add is that you'll notice that the sugar here, I will highlight it, is listed under carbohydrates. So what that's saying is that in that 3/4 cup serving of, I think that's supposed to be yogurt, there are 25 grams of carbohydrate, and 24 of those 25 grams are sugar, because sugar is a carbohydrate. Okay, so here are some useful equations to kind of keep in your back pocket for the next 5 to 10 minutes, and as well when you go label reading in the store. So 4 grams of sugar is equal to 1 teaspoon and also equal to 1 sugar cube. So that's 4 grams of sugar on the label. 250 mils is more or less a cup, and most of the drinks we're looking at, of course, the serving size is much bigger than that. And the World Health Organization's maximum recommended daily intake of free sugars for an adult is 6 teaspoons in a day. And that's free sugars for an adult. So for a child, it would be significantly less, depending on their age and body size, of course. And so free sugars really just include all of the sugars added by manufacturers, as well as sugars found in honey, syrups, and fruit juices. And so I should just note that really everybody gets too much as far as free sugars go, but there are some simple steps that we can take to reduce the free sugars, and I think that starting with sugar sweetened beverages is kind of the best first choice. Okay, so let's look at some examples. We'll start with Pepsi. We've got a 355 milliliter can, so as mentioned, that's a little bit over a cup. And if we look at the sugars, we've got 41 grams of sugar in that can. And so if we use our little equation, 41 grams divided by 4 grams per teaspoon is more or less 10 teaspoons of sugar, which is quite a bit. We're already over that 6 teaspoons recommended by WHO. And then if we look at a 591 ml bottle, which is often like a common serving size, we've got 17 teaspoons of sugar in that bottle, which is quite a bit. And I should really just mention that ginger ale has a very similar amount of sugar, as well as all other pops, but I find that ginger ale seems to fly under the radar because it says they have ginger in it, but actually they don't usually make it with ginger. Maybe if you're buying like a natural health product ginger ale, but Canada Dry Schweppes doesn't actually have any ginger in it. So if you're looking for that anti-nausea benefit of ginger, you have to actually eat the real thing. All right, let's look at Nestea iced tea next. So we've got a 500 milliliter bottle, and we've got 43 grams of sugar. So again, plugging it into the equation, that results in 10.5 teaspoons in that bottle, which again is quite a bit. So if you're going to do iced tea, I recommend making your own and experimenting a little bit. And you can sweeten with fruit first, like maybe raspberries or peaches, and sugar second. And I think it's unlikely that you'll ever add the same amount, like the 10.5 teaspoons that they would add, because it visually looks like a lot, and you can kind of adjust the sweetness to your taste buds and kind of eventually adjust to less. Next, we've got Powerade. So we've got a 591 ml bottle. And we've got 40 grams of sugar in there, which is then, of course, 10 teaspoons again. And so Gatorade is also very similar. And when it comes to sports drinks, they're really unnecessary in almost all cases. I mean, they were developed for like really high performance elite athletes that are going to be exercising for hours at a time, sometimes in high heat. So unless it's that kind of a situation where you are exercising for hours or a very long time and you're outside in high heat, it's likely unnecessary. And water can be used as hydration. It really is the best way to hydrate, and milk and a snack can be used as a way to kind of refuel after the activity. I wanted to also add, if you look at the sodium, there's 12% of your daily value in that bottle. And so as Jillian had mentioned, we typically get too much sodium or salt, as well as we get too much sugar. So that's another thing to be mindful of if you're going to be having a sports drink. Okay, so next up we've got apple juice. We've got a 450 ml bottle, and so in that we've got 48 grams of total sugar. So I have to apologize because all the labels are a little bit inconsistent. And then we have 12 teaspoons in the whole bottle, which again is double the amount of that's recommended. And so even though apple juice contains that natural fruit sugar, it meets that definition of wanting to reduce the free sugars that I was talking about earlier that the World Health Organization, or WHO, had recommended to reduce to 6 teaspoons a day. You're really much better off having the real fruit instead of the juice, so you can get that added benefit of the fiber. And when the fruit is in that whole fruit structure, it takes longer to digest, so the sugars are released more slowly. Your blood sugar doesn't go up as high because your body has more time to react to that kind of intake of sugar. And the other recommendations I have are to kind of limit it to half a cup a day or less for kids and adults really as well. And if you're going to go with juice, make sure you go for that 100% fruit juice. So you can see at the top of that nutrition facts, it says it contains 100% fruit juice. And that means it's really just the juice from the fruit. If you're buying a fruit drink or a fruit beverage or fruit punch or powdered crystals, it sometimes contains no juice at all, or maybe just a little bit, blended with a lot of other additional sugar. And so the last thing I'll say is that roughly half a cup of juice is equal to an apple. So the apple itself is much more filling and just much better overall than having that half a cup of juice. Okay, let's look at a large slushie at Dairy Queen. I wasn't able to find the actual serving size, but I think we can all kind of picture what it might look like. And so we've got 85 grams of total sugar in that slushie, which then amounts to just a big pile of sugar. And I didn't have enough space for all the sugar cubes. So 21 teaspoons of sugar. And if you're feeling like this guy, hearing that, just remember that this is roughly half the size of some of the big gulps you might find at the gas station. So it can get a lot worse with a lot more sugar. So last but not least, we've got the Rockstar Energy Drink. We got a 473 ml can. And so if some of you have been paying close attention, you'll notice that the serving size is actually, there's 2 servings per container. So this is actually half of the nutrition facts that you would get if you drank the whole thing. So we're going to have to double that sugar content of 31 grams to 62, which then amounts to 15.5 teaspoons of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. But that's not my only concern when it comes to energy drinks. There's actually a lot of concerns, and so I think we should look at these, the ingredient list at the bottom much more closely. So here are some common ingredients found in energy drinks, and these are actually all in that Rockstar drink, plus some additional additives, which are not in here. This table was taken from examine.com, and so I love examine.com for all supplements and natural health products information. They take an evidence-based approach and they're non-biased, and they really just summarize all of that info, all the research on various products for you to see if they're safe. And so when you look at this little table, it might appear that each of these ingredients are mostly safe when they're studied individually, but there's limited research, of course, on each of these ingredients, really, except for maybe like sugar and caffeine and the vitamins. But the concern is that they're not studied together, and when they're combined together in kind of various doses that they might be found in an energy drink, they can kind of have a synergistic effect. So that means that the combined effect of the ingredients is stronger than the individual effect of that ingredient. So that might sound like it's good in theory for as far as going, like getting extra energy goes, but the combined effect can also have stronger, more adverse side effects as well. And so energy drinks, if I didn't mention it already, they're natural health products, so they're not regulated. And so we really don't know often how much of each of those ingredients they're putting in the energy drink, which is a little bit scary. So do energy drinks actually cause harm? And this was taken again from examine.com, that they definitely can. So just in summary, because I thought this was really interesting, the U.S. National Poison Data System, in just a little over a year, they received 4,854 calls related to energy drinks. And that's the poison data system, of course. So nearly 2/3 of those complaints were linked to unknown additives. So again, energy drinks are natural health products, so you don't actually always know what you're getting, which is very scary to me. And however, so the major adverse events were actually linked to known additives in the energy drinks. So for example, like the caffeine and all the various other additives that are in there, those were the ones that caused the major adverse effects. And this included seizures and cardiovascular problems. And the events were most severe when they were consumed with alcohol. So it's another thing to be mindful of. And as mentioned in that second paragraph, caffeine affects the blood vessels primarily, whereas the other ingredients affect the heart. So there's a lot going on. And above all, we really just strongly recommend energy drinks not be consumed by kids, so 0 to 18 years of age, and pregnant women. All right, so we covered a few sugary drinks and how much sugar is in them, and there's of course way more out there, but don't have time for all of that. So I wanted to touch on some healthy sources of hydration that, if you were to substitute, would really make a big difference on your total intake of sugar throughout the day. We've got water, of course, as the #1 recommendation for hydration, and 0 teaspoons in all amounts, which is great. And so if you're finding that water is a little bit too boring for you, some ideas are to infuse it with various fruits and vegetables, and you can see the comment section on this post for some ideas for that. I will attach a little handout there. And tap water is great. So with the exception of when a boiled water advisory is in place, tap water is better than bottled water. And bottled water, of course, comes with a variety of environmental concerns, whereas tap water does not. Next up, we have milk, which also has 0 teaspoons of added free sugars. So you might notice on the label that milk does have sugar on the label, but it doesn't meet that definition of free sugars, just because it's a different type of sugar and it's kind of naturally occurring in that whole milk product. And so chocolate milk and other flavored milks, of course, have added sugar, sometimes quite a bit. And so if you're looking to include chocolate milk and you'd like to reduce that sugar content, one thing you can try is to mix half and half, like half chocolate milk, half white milk, and it typically tastes pretty much the exact same. Next we have tea, which naturally has 0 teaspoons as well, and that's the nice thing about it, is that you can kind of choose how much you would like to add. And tea can be quite good for you as well. And there's a whole variety of teas, so I can't really speak to which ones have different beneficial effects, but it's a great way to hydrate, and they're safe in pretty much all settings unless you're pregnant with certain teas. And so if you have questions about that, you can just send us a message. One thing I was hoping to mention at the beginning of the presentation, and I kind of forgot till now, so why do we care? Why is reducing sugar so important? It's because high levels of free sugar intake is really strongly linked to poor diet quality, obesity, and risk of non-communicable diseases. And so some examples of non-communicable diseases would be things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and dental caries. So making small changes and substitutions to reduce our sugar intake can actually have a huge impact throughout the course of your life, really. Lastly, I wanted to touch on artificial sweeteners. I don't have time to go too in-depth today. I think that might be a whole other presentation, so if you're interested, send us a message and let us know, or we can also just chat on the phone about it if you have a specific question. But generally, artificial sweeteners are found to be safe. I still recommend the non-artificially sweetened, low-sugar alternatives like the water, milk, tea, etc. But they're found to be safe, and they're found to be safer than the alternative, which is the sugary drinks. Like a high sugar drink is found to be linked to what I had mentioned earlier, which is like the diabetes, heart disease, cancer, etc., whereas artificial sweeteners are not. So I still recommend the artificially sweetened drinks over the sugar sweetened drinks, but ideally neither. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, just send us a message or leave a comment and let us know what you thought. Let us know if there's any other topics you'd like us to cover or make a video on next. And there's my contact info if you'd ever like to give me a shout.